with you wherever that may be.
Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about homeschool. We're going to talk about the pros and cons, share some statistics, but ultimately I want you to walk away from this video with a better understanding as to if homeschool is good for your family. If this is something that you want to tackle moving on into the new school year. I cannot believe we're already talking about back to school, but here we are already. Just to give you a little bit of a background, we started homeschooling almost 2 years ago, and we are a year-round homeschooling family. We live in San Antonio, Texas. We're also a military family, so we do move around a lot, which also makes homeschooling a very positive thing for a family. The kids don't have to change schools every time the military sends us to a new location. They just continue on wherever we go. They never skip a beat. But the reason we started homeschooling is because our daughter had a lot of issues from the get-go. She found schooling very challenging. She did receive help from the school with extra counseling. They would take her out of the classroom often to give her that one-on-one, but it was only 15 minutes a few times a week, and she just continued to fall far and far behind. During the parent-teacher conferences, we just continued to get the same thing. She's distracted. She's not following along. She's just not understanding the material. All these reasons why my child was not progressing. And after spending a whole day at school, I would finally have time with her after school, after dinner and all the evening rush, to sit down with her and do a little bit of homework with her here in the home. But the child was falling asleep on me. We would sit on the couch or at the table and start reading. She could not stay awake. She was so tired from the day that when it came time to allow me to help her, she just wasn't awake for it. So after so many parent-teacher conferences, even meetings with the principal, meetings with the school counselor, we decided to make the very difficult decision to start homeschooling. And we were very lucky that we're in a situation where my husband has a secure job in the military. He goes and works for our family. I stay home. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I'm able to homeschool our 2 children. Our daughter is now 8, and we have a son that is 7. Now, our son in the public school system was doing fantastic. He was progressing. He was right where he should be. I believe that maybe even later on down the road, if we kept him in public school, he would maybe be in advanced classes by the way he was going. And even the way that I see him learning here in the home, I believe that he could finish school so early, much earlier than his age would require. So we decided to pull both our children out when we made this decision because they are so close in age, and our son was advancing so much that if we pulled them both out, it would give us the flexibility to do anything we wanted with both of our children. We wouldn't have to worry about one child in the public school system and another child at home and make sure that we had to be at the school to pick up our son at a certain time every day, or we could only go on vacation during the summers when our son is out of school. By pulling them both out, I can work on our children's education one-on-one, give them both the opportunity to advance faster and learn extra things that they might find more interesting rather than just keeping them separate. And it was a very, very good decision. Our son, when we pulled him out, was in kindergarten, and I decided that since he was advancing so well, I pushed him up into the 1st grade where our daughter was. Now, since our daughter was struggling quite a bit, I ended up pulling her back down to day 1 of 1st grade. So when we pulled them out, they both started 1st grade at the same time. And I'm trying to think what month I pulled them out. I only had about 3 months until the summer kicked off. So my goal was to start right away when I pulled them out of school, school all through the summer, and by the time the other kids went back to school in the fall, they would be done with first grade. And I knew it was a long shot, and we almost made it. We almost made it through the whole curriculum, both the kids in the first grade throughout the whole summer, and they were able to catch up. Now, the first few months of homeschooling, I was very nervous. I did have a few people that I can reach out to. A lot of people in the military community homeschool because we move around so often, and it just makes more sense for a military family to homeschool sometimes. And that is if the family is up for it, because it's a very challenging task to take on. So I did reach out to a lot of those homeschool families. They gave me a little bit of a path on where I can follow, what curriculum I can use, what tools I can use. So that was very helpful from the start. Also, there's so much information online that you can research and gain a path there. So I did use that. And all of these resources really helped me mold my homeschooling here in the home. I ended up starting out with Time for Learning, which is primarily online learning for the kids. So I had my son on a desktop computer, my daughter on my old laptop. And it was just so overwhelming because they didn't know how to read. They've never used a computer before. And I was just running back and forth to the tables, just trying to help both of them. And I just felt like I made a big mistake. I'm like, why did I pull them out of school? I can't do this. I'm going to fail my children. You know, like I had so many emotions going through my head that I made a huge mistake. So I just knew I had to figure out a way. I had to do this for my kids. It wasn't at this point about me and what was easier for me. It was what was easier for them and what would help them get to where they need to be and how they can get there and have a great future, great career. And I knew that the public school wasn't going to get them where I knew that they can be. We had transformed our loft upstairs into like a learning area where we had desks and all their learning stuff. And ultimately, in the end, we turned it back into a little playroom because the kids needed a playroom. And now we do our homeschooling on the kitchen table because you really don't need all that stuff, guys. Homeschooling doesn't need its own room. It doesn't need its own, built up learning center. The kids don't need all that distraction. They need a simple area where they have their simple worksheets in front of them, some simple activities, and it's where their mind could clear out all of the distractions and focus on the task in front of them. But anyways, Time for Learning was just not for our family. It's great for a lot of families out there, but for us, it just seemed very overwhelming and very challenging. So I scratched that. I canceled our subscription. I don't remember how much it was. I think it was like $25 a month, and that was for one child, so I had them sharing. I believe that's what I ended up doing. So then we learned about the good and the beautiful, and I'm not trying to promote the good and the beautiful. I'm just saying that the good and the beautiful homeschool curriculum is what really worked for us. And it's not the only thing that we use, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But the good and the beautiful does offer free PDF downloads, so you don't have to pay for the booklets if you guys don't want to. And that is how we started out. We would print off all of the curriculum as we went along because sometimes the kids needed a little bit extra help, so I'd print off the papers again and we would work on the same material again. It worked out great for a whole year. We did that. But then our printer wasn't really keeping up with the demand. So I ended up going on to the Good and the Beautiful and ordering the books through them, which in the end, it's not going to break the bank. And the kids really enjoy the colorful pages because I would always print in black and white. And they're always wondering, like, why aren't the pictures in color and so on? But now they have these beautiful booklets, and we work on them every day, most days. And it's working out right now for us, very much so. Unfortunately, the state doesn't give homeschool families any kind of funding or any kind of tax relief, unfortunately, because we do pay out of pocket for a lot of things. A lot of field trips that we go on, it's all out of pocket, the school curriculum, and it does add up, but it's not going to be overwhelming for most families. There are a lot of free tools available to you. You just have to search for them. And maybe even you'll find some at yard sales. There's a lot of homeschool families that I've ran into that have extra material and they're like, here, just take it. We have so much. So they'll just give it away, or they'll sell it at a garage sale or on the Facebook marketplace at a very, very minimal cost. But here in our home, we don't use too much material. We actually use a lot of things around the home to educate our kids. But I'll show you guys, maybe I'll put together another video of what homeschool tools that we use and what has worked for us, and trying to keep it as minimal as possible and low cost as possible. I think that would be very beneficial for you homeschoolers out there, or if you're planning on homeschooling into this school year. So I'll put something together for you guys. So you'll have to subscribe to the channel so you could come back and check that out. We do alternate our schedule depending on what works for us at the time. So I will be putting out a new homeschool schedule very soon on the channel as well, and what has worked for us this year. And as the kids get older, your schedules are going to change. So, and as the season changes, your schedules are going to change. And guys, that's the beauty of homeschooling. You have full control over your home, your schedules. If the kids are sick, don't worry about it. Let them sleep in, stay in your PJs all day, and maybe just focus on reading that day, or let them just kind of take it easy that day and just do some handwriting. So you know what the kids need to get done and when they need to get it done. And if you don't get that much done during the week, you also have the weekends to catch up. For our family, we don't get to spend as much time as we'd really like to with my husband. So when he has the weekends off, or even a weekday for some reason, the military has family days. So we will not homeschool that day. We will spend time together as a family. We will do things as a family and not worry about homeschool at all. And it's great. We have full control over our schedules. But like I said, guys, it was very challenging at first. I think about 6 months into it is when I started getting very, very comfortable with homeschooling. And I had a lot of cheerleaders and a lot of other mothers that are very close friends of mine that were just like, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, I don't know either, but I'm trying to figure it out. And it's almost like you fake it till you make it. Like, yeah, I'm a mom, I'm a good teacher, I homeschool my kids, I got this covered. But really in my head, I was thinking, I don't have it figured out at all. But I knew that I was doing the best that I could. And I was taking the step forward to do what I felt was best for my kiddos. And ultimately, in the end, I gained the confidence to know that I was doing the right thing, and the confidence to know that I can do it. And I wake up every morning just knowing that, okay, it's a school day. Kids got to get their reading done, their handwriting. Either we do our language arts that day or we do our math. And I want to fit in art on Wednesday, STEM on Thursday. We're going to have a cooking class. Or the kids can help me with dinner tonight, so that will be their cooking class for the week. We also got to get PE in, so we'll take them to the park. We'll play pickleball when my husband gets home after dinner, so that will be their PE. There's so many opportunities that we can get different classes in, and I don't always have to sit them down at the table. I could take them to the library, change the scenery. They had the library here at our military installation at Lackland Air Force Base has a little room where the kids can go and there's no distractions. There's a whiteboard, which I have a whiteboard, a little tiny fold-up whiteboard. I could take it anywhere we go, but that thing has been a lifesaver when it comes to teaching in the home. But the Lackland Library has these little rooms with whiteboards, and I could teach the kids in there. And it gets us out of the house, because it's not always good to homeschool in the house and never leave. You have to get outdoors, you have to explore. And there's trails around here, so we'll go for a walk. I'll try to find things that they need to find, kind of like a search and find game. There's a lot of things that we just get creative with, and the kids really enjoy it. At first, when we started homeschooling, it was very difficult for them to leave their friends. Especially my daughter, she attached herself to one kid in the school, and she still to this day, almost 2 years later, mentions him and how he was so nice to her, and she misses him, but I don't even know how to get in contact with the mom. But that does break my heart. But since we are a homeschool family, we do move a lot. I'm sorry, a military family, we do move a lot. And that is something that happens either way. Every time we change schools, the kids have to say adios to their friends and then try to make new friends at the new location. And I know all about that. It's very difficult. I wasn't homeschooled, but my parents moved around so much. I think I went to 9 different elementary schools before I finally settled down. And from middle school to the end of high school, I was finally with the same group of friends. But it can be very difficult, for sure. You learn how to make friends very quickly and how to say goodbye without breaking your heart. And that's one nice thing that the kids do not have to go through as much now that they're homeschooled. They do have a lot of friends. We have friends on the block, a lot of military families, so everybody's constantly moving. But we also are part of a lot of homeschool groups. Now, when we started homeschooling, I wanted to make sure that the kids were socializing. And the great thing about homeschooling is the kids don't just socialize with their age group, they socialize with every single age group. So I feel like they've grown more so in their social aspect because they're socializing with not just children, they're socializing with adults and elderly. And I think they've grown immensely in that area. The homeschool groups, there's so many of them. We have one here in our community, and we meet at the pool, and we meet at the park, and even just going to the park when other kids are in the public school, you meet so many homeschoolers. Just, it's lunchtime, we're at the park, the other kids are in public school. This is our physical education time for the kids to get their energy out, and I've been able to meet a lot of great homeschooling families that way too. But it got to a point when we started homeschooling that I was engaging the kids in so much social activities with these groups that we weren't getting very much schooling done. So I actually had to back out a little bit so that we were able to make sure that the kids got their schooling done during the week. But that is awesome. I actually have a statistic here. There is 3.7 million families in the United States alone that are homeschooling. And that is growing by 2 to 8% every year. So I do think that COVID really jump-started this homeschooling adventure in a lot of families, because I know for us, my husband and I were both working, and when COVID started, we had to pull the kids out of school and daycare, and we had to start schooling them ourselves. And not only was it a challenge at first, but in the end, it gave parents the confidence that they can do this. So if they ever had it in the back of their mind that they wanted to homeschool, they were forced to do it and ultimately gain the confidence to just continue it. So 5.5% of the students within the United States are homeschooled. So that's very telling how many students are actually homeschooled right now. There are regulations in every state. So if you live in Wisconsin, Florida, California, anywhere in the United States, you do have to look up the laws as to how much regulation is behind homeschooling families. Sometimes the state will say you can do this, but you can't do that. Or if you need to report that you're homeschooling your children. So you should look that up before you decide to homeschool your children. We're in Texas, So there is absolutely no regulation. All I needed to do was write the principal a quick email and tell them, hey, I've decided to homeschool my kids. Here's their names. They're in this classroom, and this is the date that I'm pulling them out. Done. That's all I had to do. I don't have to report to anybody. It's all my responsibility to make sure that they're educated. Now, when we move to our next duty station, wherever that may be, I do need to look up those regulations for that state and then make sure that I'm in line with them. But I haven't ran into any hiccups. Here in Texas, it's very easy to just pull your kids out of public school and start homeschooling. I know Florida is another very easy school to start homeschooling. California has a lot of homeschooling families, but they also have charter schools that you can send your kids to. So you're kind of homeschooling and sending them to a charter school at the same time. And that charter school is very much focused on what the kids are interested in doing. And I don't know if California is still doing this, but they were giving an allotted amount per child that is homeschooled. I don't know if they need to be enrolled in a charter school as well, but they do have funding for homeschooling families. So if you're in California, and I want to say Ohio does the same thing, or Pennsylvania, look it up. But definitely look up the homeschool regulations and what the state can provide you before you start homeschooling, so you know what's available to you and what guidelines you need to follow, if any. But here in Texas, no regulations, no guidelines I need to follow, no funding, no nothing. It's all on me. It's my responsibility once I pull them out of public school to make sure that my kids are educated. And it was a very scary thing at first, but now we got this. We got this schedule down, and the kids have very much become acclimated to being homeschooled, and I think they love it. At least that's what they tell me, that they absolutely love homeschooling. I ask them every now and then if they want to go back to public school, and they say, no, I want to stay homeschooled. So I know I'm doing a good job when they just don't want to go back to public school. They want to stay home with me and continue their education here in the home. I don't want to make this video too long, but I do want to point out some additional pros and cons about homeschooling. So I'll start with the pros first, and then I'll move over to the cons. And as I was writing this out this morning, and I've been thinking about the pros and cons for some time because I knew I wanted to put together this video, mostly around the back to school time when a lot of families are thinking about putting their kids back into school. But I know a lot of families are still kind of considering, like, should we actually homeschool or should we put them in the public school? And a lot of families are looking for some guidance. So that is ultimately the purpose of this video, to share my experience and help you guys make your own decision on if this is best for you guys. So I'll start out with the pros, and then we'll move on to the cons. So when you homeschool your kids, you get it all done, all the schooling done during the day. You determine how long they need to school. For my kids, they like to goof around, and I tell them, okay, this can be a 2-hour school day, or you could turn into a 6-hour school day. It really depends on you, because I'm down to only school for 2 hours. But if you guys don't stay focused and don't get it done, it's gonna be a very long day. So most days turn into like 4 to 6 because they're just a bunch of goofballs. They like to mess around, and there's even times where I just can't take it anymore. So I'll like send one to go do like a project upstairs. Like right now, the house is really quiet because they're upstairs building a robot. So I'll send one upstairs to do a project, and then I'll school one. And then I have to do the same curriculum with the other one. But when I separate them, I actually get things done faster, usually. But I also want them to school together sometimes because I do think that it's good for them to bounce things off of each other. So that is, I guess you could say a pro and a con. But homework, when it comes to homework, when your child comes home from public school at the end of the day, there's none of that. You get it all done during the day. So scratch that homework off the list of things you got to do in the evening. I actually have more time in the evening to do what I want to do. So that is a great blessing. Another thing is when I started homeschooling my kids, I got to know my kids. And I thought that I knew my kids before I started homeschooling, but I found out I really didn't. I didn't know the struggles that my daughter was having at all. I didn't know what my son was ultimately interested in. I didn't know what made my kids tick. I learned so much about my kids being with them all day long, every single day by homeschooling, and it has been absolutely amazing. I also understand their needs. So each of my kids are very different and they each have different needs. So I fully understand that now. Before, when they were going to the public school, I would have a little bit of time in the morning and a little bit of time in the evening with them. And then on the weekends, we were always doing family things. So I didn't fully understand their needs, but now I do, for sure. You guys want to come say hi really quickly? Yeah. They're so like, I want to say hi to everybody.
Hi.
This is Peter, if you guys are new. And then Jane, you want to get on there and say hi?
Hi.
They're both in what grade now? What did
Third.
you just started third grade? And when we started homeschooling, you were in first. So do you guys like homeschooling?
I was in kindergarten.
Well, you were in kindergarten, then we moved you up to first when we started. Right? All right. You guys want to let me finish the video and say bye-bye?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys are being so quiet. I really appreciate it.
I did the
Okay.
Mama,
Can you see how crazy they are? That's what I'm talking about. When we're trying to do our schoolwork, they get a little crazy. All right, guys, let's get back into it. I'm glad you got to meet the kiddos if you're new to the channel. But another pro is understanding their education. So my daughter is actually dyslexic. And when we started homeschooling, the only way that I knew she was dyslexic is I got a letter in the mail from the school saying that they test every student for dyslexia and that she tested positive for dyslexia. And I'm like, okay, I don't even know what dyslexia is. So I kind of looked it up, and all I got out of that was she reads letters and numbers backwards, and often she'll get the word jumbled up. So the first thing I thought was, okay, well, she's going to have a very challenging time reading, and that makes a lot of sense because she already can barely read in the first grade, and she is struggling with very simple sight words. So after starting this homeschool journey, I have been educating myself so much about dyslexia so that I can effectively teach her and fulfill her needs and actually understand the challenges that dyslexia comes with. Before I was like, why isn't she not understanding this? Why is she reading the word backward? Like, what am I doing wrong? You know, why is she struggling so much with reading when I have my son who isn't struggling at all? Like, I just don't understand what I'm doing wrong. But after educating myself and identifying what she's all about, what the struggles she's having, I understand her so much more. Now, in understanding her, I'm able to mold her curriculum to her skill. So if she does mix up the words or if she reads something backwards, I'm actually quite impressed, you know, that her mind can think like that and put things together in that way. It's very impressive. And I support her much, much more, understanding the challenges that she faces trying to read. And even in reading so much about dyslexia, there's a break there. There's some people who say, hey, if you're dyslexic, you probably shouldn't force your kids to read. You should just give them audiobooks, which as a parent, I can choose how I educate my dyslexic child. And I don't believe that is the best way to go about it. So I know my child so much that I know her boundaries, and I feel confident in pushing her to focus on reading and just getting to the point where she can read as well as she can possibly read. And I sit with her every day, and we are now reading chapter books. Almost 2 years later, she went from not being able to read anything to now reading chapter books. And she does struggle a little bit, but she's doing it. And I didn't give up, and I'm not going to give up and just give her an audiobook, because someday she's going to have to go into the world without me, and she's going to have to read. She's going to have to drive a car and read signs. She's going to have to read for her job. So she needs that skill. And dyslexia is not really well known with a lot of people. If she wants to get into a certain career field, her boss may not understand what dyslexia means and either get very frustrated with her or not even give her the opportunities that she should receive in the future. But as much work as we put in right now, I think it'll definitely help her get to where she needs to be so that she can progress in whatever career field she decides to do. But I needed to understand that, and I'm still educating myself more and more about dyslexia so that I can continue to work with her so she can progress and be fit for future employment. And with that, you know your child's strengths and weaknesses. I know what my daughter's strengths are. I know what she struggles with. The same with my son. He is very, very smart. My son is very bright, but he does have a lot of weaknesses. And I go into a certain lesson knowing that, and I have to tweak it a little bit to make sure that he's interested in that certain lesson. Because if the kids are struggling or if they're not really interested, they're already out of it. They're not gonna put in the effort. But my job is to be creative and know what ticks with them so that they learn and have fun with it. And when the kids have fun with it and they're able to be creative and be themselves in the lesson, they walk away learning quite a bit, as opposed to just going with the flow and go, yeah, I get it, but they really don't because they're just not interested in it. So as long as I'm continually creative and engaging and trying to find it to be a little bit more fun for them, they walk away having learned something. And often you can't rely on a public school teacher to do that. So you can't rely on a public school teacher to give your child one-on-one attention, especially with the larger class sizes. Your child may very much fall behind in the public school. So by giving them that one-on-one attention here in the home during homeschool and being engaging and creative, I do feel that the kids learn so much more and they walk away from the lesson having it all in their head rather than completely dumping it by the time they get home. Another pro is you choose your child's influences. And I think that's one of the major reasons that people homeschool their children, because a lot of families pull out their children from public school. And it may not even be because they're falling behind, but it may be because of religious reasons. And it may be because of outside influences that are not in line with their faith or their moral beliefs. So that is not the main reason we pulled our kids out of school, but is definitely a positive thing for us. We do have our beliefs and what we want to teach our children. And my kids were coming home saying some things that I'm like, where are you learning this? Where are you getting this from? I really hope it's not from the teacher, but if it's from other kids are very influential. And especially my daughter, she wants everybody to like her, and she wants to be friends with everybody. And if somebody says something, she's a follower because she wants that person to like them. And that is very, very scary as a parent. So as she gets older, we were very concerned that it would lead her down a very bad path that would get her into a lot of trouble. So by pulling them out of school, they don't have those influences. We can teach them what we believe as a family and what we believe is right. And I'm not saying that every family believes what we believe, but as a parent, you have the flexibility to instill those beliefs in your children how you see fit, rather than an outside source, a teacher or other children pushing their own beliefs on your child. And with that, bullying, our kids don't have to deal with bullies as much. On the playground, there's always going to be bullies. even outside your door, if the kids play with other kids, there's going to be some bullying going on, but I am there, I am witnessing it, and I could take care of it. At the school, I have no idea what's going on. I'm either at work or I'm at home, and I'm not there to see what other kids are doing to my children or even adults. So I have control over that, and it feels absolutely amazing. My daughter would come home crying because some kid said something to her, or even my son would come home and say so-and-so pushed me or whatever, and it broke my heart because the only thing I could do was send an email to the teacher letting them know what my child said, and I have no idea what happened after that. So oftentimes the teacher couldn't even tell you what happened after that because of the privacy of the other child. So we have control over it now. Behavioral resets. We didn't have behavioral issues going on with the kids in public school, but I have heard a lot of families pulling their kids out of school because of behavioral problems. And as a parent that homeschools, you're with your child all the time. So you can stop them if something starts to flare up. The one thing that I can think of with my daughter, and I don't know if this is really a behavioral thing, but she chews on her hair. And I've heard a lot of kids do that. Like it's just like a nervous tick kind of thing, but she'll like grab her bangs and she'll just chew on it all day long. And I noticed that her bangs are getting shorter than the rest of her hair, but I wasn't at the school to stop her. And her teacher would tell me every now and then, yeah, I noticed she chews on her hair, and I'll ask her to stop every now and then. But the teacher's not there by her side every second of the day to say, hey, Jane, hair, Jane, hair. But I am. And I was able to stop that habit by homeschooling because I was with her all the time. So all I need to do is Jane, hair. And my son chews his nails, so I'm like, Peter, nails, you gotta stop. You know, so I'm able to reinforce that bad habit, or reinforce the stop of the bad habit by continually being around them. So that is another pro. Another thing is sleep. Kids need their sleep. Now, we are early to bed, early to rise family, but if the kids want to sleep in, I let them, because there is no rush unless we need to be somewhere, which isn't very often. So if the kids want to sleep in and get maybe 10 hours of sleep, they can do that. That's okay, because hey, I do have a little bit of work that I do here in the home, and if the kids want to sleep in, I use that time to clean the house, get my job done, and I definitely have a lot of things to do if they want to get an extra few Z's. And by allowing your kids to sleep more, their immune system is higher, their growth is better, and they're ultimately better behaved children. So when they were going to the public school, I had to wake them up by no later than 6 o'clock in the mornings. And it was a struggle to get my son out of bed. And he would complain, he would whine. I would even have to help him get dressed because he would just not move. And my daughter was up very early. She was like, let's get this day going. Let's go. Are we ready to get out the door? And we still had a half hour to go before we had to be at the school. So, but my son, he was like, no, I want to sleep. I'm so tired. But now I could let him sleep till 8 o'clock if he really wants to, which happens sometimes. And if they get very, very tired in the evening, no worries, go to bed early. We don't have homework to do. So that is definitely a bonus there. Another thing I enjoy doing as a homeschool family, and I did mention this before, is explore. We get out, we explore. When the other kids are in public school, we go on the trails, we go to SeaWorld, and we do all the fun things that we've been wanting to do all summer when the other kids are out of public school, baking in the heat. We do that during the off season. So when it's not peak season, we're usually schooling. We're spending the hot summers indoors homeschooling when the kids go back to school, that is our time to enjoy the parks and less crowds and lower cost entertainment. So that is a huge, huge blessing in itself. And that's when we do all our vacations. Our upcoming vacation is when all the other kids are in school and we're gonna go party. Another thing is you choose your curriculum. I get to choose what my kids learn. I know that they're in the 3rd grade, so there's certain things that I want to make sure that they learn by the end of the 3rd grade, and I create tests for them to make sure that they understand it, and if they don't, we continue working on it. And we don't stop until they understand it. So that is a great thing. When the kids are in public school, they continue on the same path. And what I found is my daughter was not understanding a certain lesson. Everybody continued. And she just kind of continued to fall behind, because you need to know this section of the curriculum in order to progress. She didn't understand this section, so she wasn't really progressing. So where was she then? You know, the teacher kept writing on her papers, needs more teaching. And then they would spend maybe 10 to 15 minutes helping her on another day, but she still wasn't understanding it. So she was just falling so far behind while the other kids that were understanding it continued on. So it's not a great learning environment for kids that need a little bit more focus on a certain subject. So now I can focus on a subject that she doesn't understand. We will not progress until she understands it. And that has been working for us very, very well. Another great thing about being in a homeschool environment is the kids see how you function as a stay-at-home mom every single day. They see you calling the plumber, which I had to do today. They see you paying the bills. They see you going grocery shopping. They see you doing everyday tasks, and they are starting to do those everyday tasks with me. So when we go grocery shopping, I have 2 clipboards for each of them. They write the cost of things, and then they have to tally it up with me. They help me pick out the best foods. So we all look at the labels, read the ingredients, and then we share, like, is this a healthy food? What can we make with it? There's a lot of different things that we do when we're just in the grocery store and the kids are learning. They're not just walking behind me in the cart, they're actually learning at the grocery store. So everyday tasks gives you an opportunity to teach them how to live every day. And that is something that they don't get all the time at public school. I'm sure you can teach them on the weekends, basic living things or things that you need to do to live. But these kids are seeing it absolutely every single day. And last on my list, these kids get to enjoy more time to do what they enjoy doing. If they want to get into a sport and it takes up a lot of their time, they can do that because we will mold school around that activity. There's the Olympics going on right now, and there's a lot of kids that are in the Olympics that have worked so hard on their skill or their sport, and a lot of them were homeschooled. And they had the time to do that because their education was molded around their training time. So in the future, if the kids find something that they really, really enjoy doing, they have the ability to do that. If it takes time during the week that we need to get away and go take care of something that they're interested in, we can do that because we'll just do homeschool later on in the evening. So that is a huge benefit for families that run into children that have a great skill and they want to really hone in on that. That will help them definitely into the future. So now we're going to talk about cons. And this list is not very long, not as long as the pros, so stick with me here. And most of these cons, as I was writing them out, I found that it's mostly about the parents' insecurities, my insecurities going into this. So the first one is I get very little me time during the day. But when the kids were in public school, I was a stay-at-home mom and I still had my work that I do in the house here. I did my work. When they were in public school, I did my work. I got my workout in. I cleaned the house. I did everything I needed to do during the day. I had me time. If I wanted to go grocery shopping, I went grocery shopping by myself and worked at my own pace and just knew that at 2:30 I had to be at the school to go get the kids. And it was easy, but that is something that I do miss from time to time. But I know if I put him back in public school just because I wanted those days back, I would be so down on myself because I would feel like I'm not doing what's best for my children. I'm just doing what's best for me. Another thing is I was very concerned that I was not enough. I was concerned that I couldn't do it. And I already talked about this a little bit, but you will have those feelings that you don't think you're up for it and that you will fail your children. There's still days where I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. They're too goofy. They're too crazy. They're not listening to me. And whatever system I came up with this week or that month isn't working right now. And I've had it. But at the end of the day, I really wouldn't have it any other way because I am seeing how much these kids are growing and how much they are progressing in their education. And I feel so blessed to be the person to help them and help guide them along this path. I'm not sending them away to have some other adult do it for me. I'm doing it. I told my husband the other day, because he's like, Peter's reading signs. And we were at a baseball game and he's like, he's reading signs and he's reading a lot. And he's like, it's so amazing how much he's grown in just the past year. And I'm like, you know what? It's so amazing. And what I love so much about this is we're the ones that are teaching him. It's all because of our effort in teaching him how to read. And it's great. So I very much feel blessed to be able to say that. Another thing is when you're a homeschool parent, you wear so many hats. You're a cook, you're a maid, you're an educator, you're a doctor, you're so many different things, and it never ever stops. But guys, you're a parent, and you will always be those things every single day from day one when you become a parent. It's just heightened a little bit because you never get a break. But you are on your game throughout the day, and then you'll get little breaks maybe when your spouse gets home or when the kids go down to bed. That's when I feel like I can, but honestly, it never ends. Even when the kids are sleeping, they could wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, Mom, my tummy hurts, and then you're playing doctor again. So it just heightens a little bit when you're homeschooling and the kids are with you all the time. You're wearing those hats all the time. No breaks. Another thing is you need to get very creative, and I talked about this a little bit. I use Pinterest a lot, and I look up a lot of things online, and I also take away from other homeschooling families any great ideas that they have. One thing that we started doing when we homeschooled is if the kids have a question or they're curious about something, they'll write their question down. We'll put it in a jar, and when we sit down on the couch as a family, like on a Friday night, we'll take the question out of the jar and we'll look it up on YouTube or the internet so that we can answer their question. So not too long ago, Peter came up to me. He's like, Mom, how are Oreos made? So I had him write down his question. We put it in the jar and we looked up a video on YouTube. And you could almost find absolutely everything on YouTube. Find a video that will answer your child's question. So that's what we started doing. And it's actually a lot of fun. And I'm very always curious to see what kind of questions the kids come up with. And they're usually really, really great questions. And I most likely cannot answer some of them. But that is another creative way that you can focus in on trying to educate your children. But we're all creative. We all have a lot of great ideas. So feed off the other homeschooling families. Look them up on Pinterest, search them on YouTube. There's so many tools that we have available to us now. So just keep on trying to mold your creative mind so that you can creatively teach your children and keep them engaged. Another thing is school activities. I do have a lot of families around us that keep their kids in the public school, and we talk with them all the time, and they're like, oh, the school's having a carnival, or they have like a veteran ceremony or a back to school event, or when they get in high school, they'll have dances. And a little part of me is like, oh, I really wish the kids could enjoy those. And it makes me sad a little bit. Like, I really hope that, I wish my daughter can go to prom someday, or, you know, something like that, or get engaged in football. But they have those capabilities. I know in Florida, they do allow homeschooling families to enroll in sports activities through the school. So that is something that Florida offers. But here in Texas, we've run into so many homeschool families that put together a lot of events that the public school doesn't do. And I've even seen homeschool families put together a prom for their high schoolers. And it's really cool how they're trying to allow kids to be homeschooled, but also allow them the ability to enjoy the benefits of being in public school, all the events that public school offers. So things are getting better, and they're getting better very quickly when it comes to homeschooling families enjoying social events. So there's not too many cons. That's it. That's all I can think of when it comes to cons with homeschooling. They're mostly very positive, and the cons are mostly centered around the parent and what they feel they're capable of. And it does take a lot of time to build that confidence as to being a homeschool parent. So with that, I know this video is much longer than I wanted it to be, but I can go on and on talking about homeschooling and answering any questions that you guys may have. So if you guys have questions that I did not answer, I will do my best to answer them. So leave a comment down below, and I will get back to you when I see them. And I hope this video was very helpful for you guys. If you're thinking about homeschooling your kiddos this school year, even if you put them into public school this year and go, you know what, I think I need to do it. I need to pull them out. Even though they've been in school for a month, we need to do this. So just do it. Follow your heart, follow your mind, and it'll be hard at first, but it'll get easier, especially the older your kids get. If you're starting to homeschool and your kids are a little bit older and they already know how to read, that's half the battle. They're gone. I think the biggest challenge for us is the high energy that my young kids have, and the fact that they don't know how to read completely yet. So I do need to help them and guide them a lot right now. But once they learn how to read and do a lot of their education a little bit more self-led, which will probably be a few years down the road for us, it'll get so much easier. And then you're there to always give them that one-on-one attention when it comes to their education. So with that, I want to thank you guys for coming along on this video. Thank you. And be sure to subscribe. Hit that button down below. Thumbs up the video. It helps our channel out a lot. We are a military family, and we like to get out there and explore and do a lot of things. We take you guys along for all of our adventures. We vlog our day in the lives, and it's been a fun adventure sharing our life with you guys, so don't miss out on that. So come along, hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for tagging along in this video. Again, leave your comments down below, and hope to see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's go adventure in the deep